Hi. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. When I got the invitation, it was, I mean, for me personally, it was very interesting because I grew up on summer camps. Um, so all these things that now are happening live basically were my childhood. And many of you I kind of grew up with. And the speakers that were on the previous days, I know from when I was tiny. So when I accepted the invitation, I started thinking about the interesting process that happened during my times. Um, I want to share. I have somewhere. I'm going to see if I'm going to start sharing my screen. You guys will love this, I hope. Where is it? Is it open? Yes. So let's go full on. Yeah. But I would like to get rid of this one. So basically, this is me when I was little and when I was part of all the summer conferences. And it was very interesting because as a child, I don't think anybody ever expected that I would be the idealist that would start doing things with organic. I was always into dancing and into fashion, and I liked all these things. Even though I grew up in, as I said, I went to Boston, to Massachusetts. I was in the study house in the Cushy study house. I grew up in Beckett and in Switzerland in the Cushy Institute. But I felt that I had a very particular interest. I studied philosophy, and I started working in fashion on a very early age. And even now, if I discuss it with my father and my mother, they find it very surprising what happened during the way. And I'm very happy I have the opportunity to share a little bit of what happened with all of you. So I had my interest in fashion, and then and then I opened a company together with my business partner almost 6 years ago, which was called Infantium Victoria. I hope that my screen is fully shared.
Yeah, looks good.
Yes. And what happened was we decided to have a company together. She was a like-minded spirit. She has been vegan for 20 years and she's been practicing macrobiotics, and I've been vegan for all my life and practicing macrobiotics. And so at a certain moment, we decided together to start this company, which was a children's company for children's clothing. And from the beginning, we decided it was very, very important for us that it would be sustainable and it would be organic and it would be vegan. And at the time, this wasn't something that was very hip or happening. And the first few years were really mostly colored by the search of materials, and it kind of started our process and started our path. I already had an interest in it from before. I was already working with organic cottons because I grew up with organic. For me, it was kind of logical that you would have organic food, and so I thought it was a very normal, logical next step to also have organic cotton. Turns out that was much harder to find than good quality miso. So we started searching, and so we also defined our own principles for the company, and we decided that for us it would be very important that we were broadcasting and showing alternative beauty, which we basically wanted to show people that you can find beauty in different things and that you should always look further than what meets the eye. And we would advocate unconventional life because, let's face it, if you want change, you got to be the change. And we started this company out of a desire to make children's fashion more sustainable and more organic and basically improve on what was there. And we simultaneously thought that seeking a harmonious lifestyle was something that we wanted to promote within the brand. And so harmony with nature was something that was essential for us. And we already practiced in our personal lives, but we also considered that in a business, this should be possible. So we started saying, okay, we want to make really cool children's clothes, but they should be organic, they should be vegan. This is where we kicked off. And we really hoped that 10 years later, our ideals would kind of become standard practice. This was our biggest hope, that it would become general. And we've been going for 6 years now. We've been sharing awareness, we've been advocating. In the beginning, we were just looking for suppliers and trying to establish a way of working. And we asked so many questions. I think it's kind of key if you set up a company, that you kind of have a vision and a target of what you want to do, but how to then realize that is not so easy. And so we had many, many questions, how we should do things and why we wanted this. And what I found very interesting was that we became more and more idealistic along the way, whilst we already started saying we want to have it organic, we want to have it vegan. But from there, it started growing. In the beginning, people always thought that organic also kind of meant that you were very limited, that there were very limited amount of materials that you could use and very limited amount of colors, textures. And so when we started, it was really a challenge to find the surprises where people would go like, this is really organic. And I'm like, yes, it's really organic. And we could prove it. So for us, this was giving a lot of gratification. But then we wanted more as it goes. So we started thinking, okay, where should we produce? Should we produce it in Germany, in Europe, in the world? My business partner is living in Germany, Julia. I kind of work a lot in Switzerland and in Belgium. We kind of consider ourselves kind of global citizens more than really connected to one particular country. But where should we produce and why? And then, of course, what should we make our garments from? We want them organic, but organic doesn't say you can't use plastic or polyester. So where are our lines? Where are our decisions of how to make selections? And we know we want organic, but if we can't get it organic, cotton is a plant. So, I mean, plants are good. Well, we figured out along the way that regular cotton is as polluting as polyester, just because of how it's grown and mostly all the chemicals that go into it. So then we said, okay, so never, ever any non-organic cotton, but what about recycled polyester? And then you learn about all the washings that every time you wash your garment, it starts shedding into the ocean and you're like, definitely never polyester. So also no recycled polyester. So what's left? What will we use? And then of course, as a designer, you start asking, how should I deal with all these limitations? How should I feel about them? But also how should I go about them? And final and very important question, should I even be making clothes? Do we need clothes? And do we need my company to make them? So after being in the business already for 2-3 years, more and more of these questions came and started reoccurring. We had very clear ideas. We were never using any regular cotton. We once experimented with recycled polyester, which was like 7% in a fabric where the 93% was organic cotton, and it felt uncomfortable. But still, you have to question yourself over and over again. And so I think the most important question was, should we actually be making stuff? And it's a question that it still pops up occasionally because there is so much. But then again, people like buying stuff. So should we make it guilt-free for them? And what does that mean if it's guilt-free? And then I read a lot and I investigate a lot and I ask a lot of questions. And then at a certain moment, I had a very interesting discussion with somebody who said, but you cannot tell nature to stop growing. It will grow. You can fertilize it and you can do many things. You can chemically change it. But even if you do nothing, it will grow. So what does that mean about humankind? And if we should stop making, maybe we should approach the whole idea of making differently. So we thought, okay, we definitely will keep making, but then the making itself becomes a question. Because if you make something, you're responsible for what you make. And that means a whole new set of challenges or ideas. But we accepted the responsibility and we started thinking, okay, every choice we make will influence everybody's tomorrow. And it would be great if people, when they purchase something and they want to purchase something, then at least let's make sure that they have a good choice that they could make compared to other choices, because they will buy. So why not make sure that they have something good to buy? And we're working for children, which is for me particularly interesting. When we started, my son was very small, but already too big to fit the clothes, because we started with only making clothes for 1 and 2 year olds, and he was 4. And so during the process of our company developing, he was always too tall and too big and too old to fit our clothes, but he would be consulting. But I realized that if you teach them, whatever I learned when I was small, it stuck with me. And children have a natural understanding of the order. So if I discuss with adults that if you buy organic cotton, that you save bees, for some of them it's mind-blowing. If I explain to a child that if you buy organic cotton t-shirt, you're saving the bees, it's absolutely normal. Because cotton is one of the crops that uses so many pesticides. So clearly, if you buy it organic, you're saving not just the water and the farmers, but also a lot of the bees. So it was very nice to find out that we actually have an audience that we can influence in a way, or that we can share ideas with or exchange ideas with about responsibility and the future we want. So our choices are crucial. And I mean, I know that on a personal level, we talk a lot about your personal responsibility and what my choices say about who I am and what I want and what my dreams are and what my goals are in the future. I also know that I don't always have to be consistent. I also know that sometimes I do things that are absolutely not helping my dreams and my future. But still, I realize that there's a responsibility there. And I think what was for our brand a very important sentence is that with every purchase, you don't just support the world you want to live in, but you actually actively support the world you will live in. Because by buying it, you confirm a certain reality. So as a company, we decided that this implements that everything we do, because we don't buy one button, we buy 5,000. We don't buy one t-shirt, or we don't make one t-shirt, we make 200. So it's on a magnitude scale that our impact is expanded. So it was very important that we make sure we investigate and do the right things. And doing the right things is not always easy to know what that is or how to judge that. And sometimes you look back and you go, okay, that was clearly the wrong one, but let's learn and move on and do better. And we look a lot at nature, and we learn a lot. And every time when we find new limitations, we say, okay, how can we creatively deal with that? We don't want to defy the limitations. So it's not like we want to find ways around it. We want to respect the limitations given and find ways of aesthetically working with them and even maybe enforce them. So for us, it's very interesting compared to other design studios. And I teach a lot of fashion designers around the world. We spend 50% of our time investigating. So we spend a lot of time on research and development, figuring out what kind of choices to make, figuring out what kind of information is available, figuring out what kind of information we need to uncover or we need to research, and ways that will allow us to merge our dreams with the limitations that we have chosen. And I say that we chose them because other companies clearly don't choose them or choose not to respect them. But I think what is, for me, very important, and a very important evolution that happened over the last 6 years is I saw, I was watching Sherry's cooking class, and she was showing products that have USDA organic, which is great. But I think it's very important for people to know that organic as a word is not protected. So as a company, I can write organic on anything I want. And I can say sustainable, and it equally means absolutely nothing. And the USDA organic labeling is very good for food. It's very bad for crops like cotton. So if we look at the analysis, what you see is that the USDA organic, it says your fiber is organic. They certify that. And it will come with a transaction certificate, which means that along with the roll of fabric or along with the t-shirt that you buy, there will be a certificate that goes along the whole chain to certify that it comes from an organic field where the fiber were grown. Now, unfortunately, a huge percentage of the impact of cotton and of other natural fibers is not just in the field and in the farm, but it's in how you then have to obtain the fibers. And that is not at all taken into account. So if you buy something that's USDA organic, or farmers that work USDA organic, they can actually, after that, in the processing, treat their fabric and their fibers any way they want. Chemically dye it, put all kinds of chemicals on it to soften it, to make it easy to iron. Easy iron means there is a Teflon coating on your fiber. Teflon, the stuff we don't want in our pots. And all the social issues about the people working in the ginning mills and everything, they're all also not regarded. So this is, I think, very important for us as a company. We always chose to support GOTS, and GOTS is a company that started, it's not actually a company, it's a certifying labeling. And it started when 5 independent companies started giving out certificates all over the globe. So one was Japanese, one was in Europe, one was in America. And at a certain moment, they all figured out they were all having the same kind of criteria. The criteria were the land and the farm, and they wanted to do follow-up. They would have independent checking and verifying, and then they went on. So they said, okay, the farm, the farmer, the soil, the irrigation, you cannot just water your fields endlessly to grow your crop. You should grow your crops depending on the environment you live in. The chemical use, not only on the field, but also afterwards. How are you extracting your fibers? How are you coloring them? How are you finishing them? What are you doing? Are you like putting little glitters on them? Your certificate is gone. It's no longer organic. So all of these things came into play. So water treatment, environmental policy. Even if, for instance, a company like mine, if we only buy the t-shirt completely ready-made, and we buy it from a factory and it comes into our warehouse and we want to sell it, we need to show to independent organizations that we have a water plan, water processing, cleaning, treatment plan, that we don't have any chemicals, that we don't use them on anything, even in the cleaning of the floors of the building, and that we have our environmental policies, that we have social policies, and that we respect them. And that sounds very logical in certain countries, but in a lot of textile countries, it's not a given. For the moment, worldwide, less than 7% of all cotton is organic. Well, thank God it's rising. It used to be less than 1%, but still, we should do better. We want to take over the world, so we should start making more. And we do find that we spend, as a company, we spend a lot of time talking with our farmers and with people that are converting. We do decide to use also material that's in conversion, because it takes 3 years to clean your farm and your soil. So during 3 years, these farmers will have less produce at the end of the season, more work, and thus less money. So we decided that we will step into this process with them. We purchase materials that come from these farms because we believe that you should encourage this want for change. But we talk a lot with these farmers and we visit them and we ask a lot of questions. And what I think is very interesting to hear is that when you really talk with the farmers, the people that actually work the land, and you ask, so why did you decide to change? They bluntly tell you, we saw people getting absolutely sick, our family, our friends. And even within 1 year of changing, the land has changed, the quality, the fertility of the land has changed, and the health benefits for them and for their family are tremendous. So not just with buying organic food, but also with buying organic other equipment that we use on a day-to-day basis, the impact of it is enormous on many levels. So I thought this was an important point because a lot of people seem to think that organic is organic, but it's really not. And the only standard for the moment on the market that really covers all elements is GOTS. They're very strict, they're independent, and they have 14 agencies all over the world that are third-party investigators. But we hear from a lot of farmers, especially in America, in the USA, that they're having trouble because organic is still working in monocultures. It still needs fertilizers in, even though that they're natural fertilizers, they are still looking for ways to really work the land. So very interestingly, recently, there's a third element which is coming up, which is called regenerative farming, which basically means it's not just about doing good, it's about improving, making it better. And I think for us, this has always been something that we've been aiming for. We love even the thought of it alone. The question is how to realize it, how to make sure that you create a better situation, not just maintain a status quo. So we realize that organic and vegan is simply not enough. We have a GOTS certificate, we have a vegan certificate, PETA has certified our whole collection. So we thought about it for a long time, and we had a lot of discussions in the team, but also with other people around us. And I came to the conclusion that we care always about 5 different things. We always question these 5 different things, and they influence almost all our decisions. And those 5 elements are basically the maker, the product, we make products, the wearer, the soil, and nature. And I understand that it's not always logical to make a distinction between soil and nature, but it is, in our vision, fundamentally different. Let me try and explain. So for us, the maker, it's the easy one. It's everybody. We're a tiny, tiny company, but we have over 3,000 people that worldwide, in some way or form, participate in building our collection. And that means people that farm our cotton, people that gin it and mill it and weave it and dye it. And we visit most of them. Not now, for the moment, everybody's staying at home, but we are in very close contact with them. And we question, how can we make your life better? What is our influence? What can we do to make it easier or more satisfying? Because they are heavily influenced by decisions we make already at the design stage. And so we hear from a lot of people that turning into a GOTS certified organization has changed and influenced a lot their lives. For sure, in certain countries like India, where we work with a part of our production, the income that they obtain from a GOTS certified facility is the top 1 percentile for their industry. So we're always very proud that we know that our workers not only get a minimum wage, but they get a living wage. A living wage is very important because it means they can save. And if there's a crisis in the family, they can fix it. They have money to fall back on. If there are illnesses, they will have protection. They can basically anticipate life instead of just go day to day. And we do work in India. We also work in Portugal and in Spain, because for us, it really doesn't make such a big difference in the sense of that certain skills no longer are available in Europe. And we're looking for craftsmen and for people, makers that really want to make because they have a passion for making garments and that have knowledge that we have lost. We work with a natural dyeing house in India, and they make amazing colors, which they grow in their garden. I cannot find that here in Europe. 70% of all organic cotton in the world grows in India. Why would I not work with Indian people to make part of what we do? So what we try to do is create short chains. We know where everything comes from. We know where the materials come from. And how can we create a very short chain between there where it grows, through all the processing till it's a final product? How can we really shorten that chain as much as we can? But of course, according to a quality standard, which is pretty high compared to a lot of other brands. So for us makers, that's an easy one. It's basically everybody around us. It's my team, it's me, everybody who makes in some way or form our clothes. A huge amount of our decisions are based on them. And then the second thing, of course, also very obvious, our product. how will our product react? How can you wash it? How can you care for it? What will be its lifetime? Very important, will it have any trace residue, like from the dyeing? So if you wash it, which we hope you do because it's a garment, what will happen to it? Will it influence anything around it? How will all the components, so like the buttons and all the other elements, how will they improve life in general? And that's a tricky one because, for instance, how is your garment made? What kind of yarns, what kind of interlinings, what are the labels? All these questions, all the little things. So how will they live during the life of the garment, but also what are they made of? How will the garment itself influence, for instance, water quality? And then, because we think it's very important, our product will be worn by small people, by children. And so they grow really fast and we make a long-lasting garment. So our garment is really made for longevity, but they will grow out very fast. And we did two things. First, we do a lot of little videos on mending. We show people, because we think it's part of our brand philosophy, we show you how to alter your clothes, and how to mend them, how to extra decorate them, basically how to prolong their life all the time. Because if your button falls off, you should be able to put it back on so you can still wear your garment. And then we also decided to set up a part of our website and say, okay, you have a garment that you purchased from us, or you got it from some other retailer, but it from our brand, then you ship it back. We'll double check it for you. We'll put it back up. It's 10% of the retail value. So basically it doesn't even cover most of the handling, but we think it's important that these garments rotate. And I hope that people know other friends that have smaller children, but it's not always the case. So we decided to really push this. Now, of course, the wearer, we love children. They're so honest in their feedback. And for them, I realized quite early on in the process, what they care about most is how it feels. What's the touch? Is it soft? Do I want to live in it? If I put it on, will I never want to take it off anymore? And can I move around in it? Does it have pockets? Can I collect rocks when I'm on the beach? Can I like drag everything home that I need to, which is vital. And those are basic design decisions. All of these things need to be able to happen. But also, can we spread awareness? Can we spread information? Can we educate? So for instance, what you see here is a block print, hand carved wood blocks that are then hand printed in a print studio, where you see a little caterpillar that then turns into a cocoon, that then turns into a butterfly, which is a very short vision of the circle of life, but it just keeps going. And she's holding a protest sign which says "Free the bees," because she's wearing organic cotton. So she freed some bees. Now we try to always enable children to have memories in it, and to help shape their future. But then we come to the two tricky parts that form our decision-making process. The soil. So what can we do to improve the soil? And the soil is something very concrete. It's something you can touch. It's the soil on the field of the farmer. We don't only use cotton, we also use hemp and linen and other plant-based materials. We're experimenting with nettle and rami, which are all plants. But how do our actions and our choices at the design stage and at the buying stage, how do we help the soil? Buying it organic makes a difference. Helping a type of regenerative farming helps even more. So how can, because what we realized is that if the soil is good quality, it basically becomes a carbon sink. It just eats away the carbon. So it's making a positive impact. It's eliminating carbon from the environment. So how can we design in a way that it will protect the soil, and related to that, protect and not harm any animals? A lot of animals are harmed by the pesticides, but also in the dyeing. And even if you do organic, then there is still, you can dye with chemical dyes and plant dyes and animal-based dyes. So of course we don't want to use those because we don't want to promote this kind of farming at all. So how can we enhance biodiversity with the choices we make and with the people we work with? So for us, soil is very direct link to nature, because the fifth pillar that we make our decisions on is nature. And nature, for me at least, is a long-term plan. How are we impacting with our garments the long-term aspects of what's happening around us? What will change nature for the better? So not the physical direct contact with the soil, but the long-term ideas. What will happen after the life of our product? And how can we be responsible for this? And how can we return to nature? And return can happen in many, many ways. But for us, it keeps coming back up, and it's something that we constantly think about. And basically these 5 terms are the ones that color all our decisions. We make, I know that you got a link leading to a little video that we made about how to make pickles, because we think it's important that we share not just fun activities to do with children, but also healthy choices that you can make. And we love showing them activities that you can do about making gifts, maybe for your mother. So we have all these kind of things. Little teaser. I don't know when Father's Day is, but when it hits and you go to our Instagram, there will be a vegan macrobiotic chocolate muffin recipe up there with a chocolate frosting. Some people will be very happy. It's a super easy recipe. But anyway, so we do these kind of things, but we also do a lot of educational videos. We do a lot of explaining, a lot of teaching. We teach teachers, we teach children, because it's all part of the 5 core questions that we keep asking ourselves. We have been discussing with a few of the farms that we work with, how we can engage in an even more long-term relation with them to push the regenerative farming. For now, we feel that a lot of what is happening there is based in the USA, because there the need is the biggest, because they have so much monoculture and the farms are so big. The countries that most of our cotton comes from, farms are really small and they're really family owned. And we spend a lot of time and energy invested in how we can help them as families and as little communities grow. And we come across very rare little gems that have developed techniques of changing the land and changing the nature to make beautiful fabrics. We recently brought a fabric back to Europe, which was never seen here before. It feels like a wool, it touches like a wool, it reacts like a cashmere, and it's a plant. It's some kind of weed. Because of course, it's very weird that we say it's a weed, because it's just a plant. Just like cotton is just a plant. We just decided that we like one and not the other. So we said limitations. Yes, where our limitations are based on our 5 criteria, but mostly on nature and feedback we hear. And so we use them as challenges to our creativity, to see what we can do within these set lines. And so we always find everything after that becomes so easy. Now, I do want to give credit, because whatever we do is very much inspired by the cradle to cradle principle, which is something that for us has been really fundamental in the development of our company. And cradle to cradle basically works with 2 core principles, 2 core ideas, which is that in the world today, as we have made it, there are 2 different cycles, and we should always try to not blend them. And what they say, in which I truly believe, is that there are 2 cycles. One is a natural cycle, where everything that comes from nature directly and could go back into nature, that should stay together. And on the other side, you have the technical cycle, which should forever and ever remain on its own, in its own lane, because once you blend them, you get hybrids, which are unseparatable, unrecyclable, and basically they're lost both for nature and for any technical purpose. So just to make this very concrete, let's, for instance, say if you make a cotton garment and you put a plastic stitching in it, Your garment can no longer be recycled as a cotton because it's no longer just a plant, it now has plastic in it. Or in a different form, if you need to ship a box to anybody and you put a plastic sticker on it, then you're blending plastic with cardboard. You no longer can recycle your cardboard unless you take your plastic off. Your plastic is technical waste. Your cardboard is natural waste. These two, you should always avoid blending them. If you can do that, life on this planet becomes so much nicer. And for us, it's really one of the base ideas behind everything we do. And we try to never, ever blend. I'm not saying we always succeed, but we are on the lookout. We know where we don't succeed, and they're like on my hit list of things we need to find solutions for. Or we just don't do them till we find solutions sometimes. But yeah, I think, for instance, sneakers and shoes are a huge problem because they are automatically blended very often. So to look for solutions there, we work a lot with natural rubbers and with only natural elements. We don't make our own shoes, but we work with companies that do make shoes. But it's something that we're very aware of. Even in my personal life, I cannot buy something which is a blend, which is a hybrid between something completely natural and something completely technical, because what am I going to do with it after I don't like it anymore? There's nowhere where it can go. So for us, that was really basically one of the baselines. And then I'm sure that many of you are very familiar with Fukuoka and his writing and his research and the work he did for many years. And what I love about what he writes and his thoughts are that he was always very upset when people just came and wanted to directly, we have extra company, if people would come to his farm and just thought that they could directly implement his ideas wherever they were in the world. But I don't think we can do that at all. But I do think that for us, we don't physically grow our own cotton, but we do demand cotton to be grown. And therefore, if we can make a change in how our materials are grown, we can change what we have and change will come from there. So I'm much rather regard his ideas as questions to solve in our own practice. And then, of course, the whole idea of regenerative practices, regenerative farming, because when we started 6 years ago, we just didn't want to do any harm and we wanted to make it better. But over the past 6 years, I have come to the realization that I am no longer satisfied if I say, okay, we did no harm. I want to know we improved. I want to know we made it better, that after this garment was made, I made a difference, which is not just a status quo. And it's not just that if you buy this garment or that thing, this product or that thing, that there's a status quo. And I think in any company that you work in any field you work in, you can ask these questions and you can make choices that give better outcome. I wanted to thank you. I found it really nice. I saw that there were some questions which I had to make a choice between sharing my screen or reading the questions. But I'm writing a book for the moment, which, hey, let's face it, I have to share all my knowledge. I feel that it's vital that people realize that organic is not just what we put in our mouth, but it's also how we decide to live our life. And I think that what we have learned over the course of 6 years, and I've been working in this field almost for 15 years, it's not just about fashion and it's not just about how you make garments. It's about asking questions and realizing that a lot of the problems that we face today are basically design flaws. We have accepted designs that just don't work. Maybe the shoe works today, but if the shoe has no destiny after you wore it, then it's a flawed design. So yeah, I'm going to see if I can find the questions somewhere, and I'm going to try. So I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Let's open it. Did I stop sharing my screen? I stopped sharing my screen. Yes, I did. I think I did. Not if you want to unmic everybody.
You are amazing. Yeah, great.
If anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself, and that seems to work real well. Greetings
I
to
did.
Aviva.
I did. You talked mostly about cotton a lot, and there's a lot of other materials that are coming on the market. Cannabis has been around for a while, and
Yeah.
flax and other things.
Yes.
You also incorporate those?
We use all of those. I mean, flax for us is a very logical decision. Obviously, most flax is grown in France, Belgium, and Holland in the world. So it's our primary material. It keeps you warm in winter, cold in summer. Actually, to grow flax is so much more sustainable than to grow cotton. So it's actually the yielding per acre is much higher. It doesn't need any pesticides by nature. The only problem that we're facing is that finding organic is hard.
Oh.
And the reason that is important for us is that even though you grow it without pesticides and without fertilizers, I need to have proof what happened after. I need to know how you treated the fiber, because so much can go wrong there. So we use it, but only from certified organic, GOT certified linen suppliers. And then I think it's very nice to really find materials. So we have used lotus, which came from a family farm. It's insanely expensive. It's super luxury material, and I cannot believe we decided to use it for children's dresses, but we did. They're basically your one-off dress. But the fabric is hand woven, hand picked, hand treated, like the whole process is handmade. And so we used that, which for me was very exciting. We have been using a material made from pineapple. So this pineapple leather, where there is for the moment, there's a 20% PU that they use as a coating on it. But as with the cotton in transition, we also decided they are aware that they need to get rid of the PU. So they have.
What is PU?
PU is a polyethylene, so it's a oil base, which is not what we want. But yeah, and we use the hemp, the cannabis, very accidentally. Yes. The hemp has been challenging because when we started 6 years ago, it was still illegal in most of the US. And because we have a big part of our clientele there, we couldn't start making pieces in materials we couldn't ship. But that has changed by now. I think there are 34 states where now it's accepted and it's legal to make. And actually, it's one of the oldest materials. I think if the data is not misleading me, they have been talking that it's the oldest textile that we have found. Oldest human-made textile is hemp. We're looking into nettle, but there the biggest growth is in China. And in China, they don't have a Chinese word for organic, creating slight problems for us. Because we need organic and we just don't need the word, we need the certificate. This is changing, and it's rapidly changing because they are becoming very aware of the outcry of people all around the world for this kind of change. So they are picking up on that for many reasons and with many incentives, but we don't care as long as the outcome is good. We're happy with that. But yeah, so we use a lot of different plant-based materials. And as I said, we recently came across a tiny company. There are literally 5 people working in India. And they managed to translate a plant called Calotropis into a fabric, which feels like it's a cashmere, and it's not. And it's completely hand picked apart, and it's quite labor intensive, but we spent days there doing it with them, which was very interesting. We were hand picking it apart with them, soaking it. There are no chemicals involved. And what we like about these kind of companies is that they didn't market the fabric when they figured out how to make it, because they had a waste problem, which is that if you take the leaves and you pick out the fibers, what do you do with the leftover, the biomass? And they didn't want to just burn it for obvious reasons. So they were trying to figure out the right way of using it. And they finally figured out that they're using it now as compost for the land, but also that they can translate it into an insect repellent, which is very effective where they live, and both for a skin lotion and for cleaning your house. So you clean your floor, and for a whole week, you won't have mosquitoes in the house, which is great. And only when they figured out all these problems and when they solved all of them, they decided to go to the market with this fabric, which is very, very nice. So yeah, I also saw that somebody's asking why if we're planning to extend to adults. The funny thing is, we decided when we started, we were only making clothes for like babies 6 months to 2 years. And then it grew over time. And now the biggest size we have is a size 16, which I fit because it's a size in European sizes, it's 176. So it relates to a size 38. We have a size chart on the website. So if you want to check, it's not every model is conceived to be for mothers or
I
moms.
wanted to show, I have a jacket, size 16. I didn't even see the color, but
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
blue velvet.
Yeah, I got it from my daughter. I'm a Viva's mother.
Yes, I know. Hi.
So it's beautiful. You can't really see it now, but
Yeah, it has very nice shine
yeah.
and it's very comfy. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm wearing a dress. I don't know if you guys can see, but it has a print on it of a tea field with farmers. And it's a dress, but it's a very easy dress and it's in the collection, but I wear it all the time. It's so for some models it works, and we have had occasionally capsule collections where we decided to make 3 or 4 pieces to go with for the mothers or for the fathers, because we do get the request. I just think that the market for children was still so empty in terms of what was there in organic and sustainable products availability. And everybody who becomes a fashion designer has a dream of designing for adults. And so also now with a whole new wave of people wanting to do sustainable fashion, this market is much more supplied for. And I just decided that for us, we really want to make a difference. We got to make sure that they learn at an early age how important your choices are. So yeah. Are there any other questions? Anybody I can still explain something for?
Dinie, you've done a wonderful presentation. You're a very fluent and effective speaker.
Thank
We
you.
really enjoyed both your presentation and, of course, your ideas.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
It was very interesting for me. I'm very used to talking for fashion designers and for children, which is a very different audience.
Yes, it is. Thank you again.